With its huge rings of ice and dust, Saturn is one of the solar system's most iconic planets. It's beautiful, really. But what's it hiding behind those bright clouds? Well, you're about to find out by taking a stroll on the gas giant's surface. If you can. What would it be like to fall through Saturn's atmosphere? How soon would extreme conditions bring you to a frozen end? And if somehow you did make it to the surface, what would you find? This is What If, and here's what would happen if you tried to walk on Saturn's surface. About 1.2 billion kilometers away from where you're standing right now sits Saturn, the sixth planet from the Sun. About 9 times wider than Earth, it's the second largest planet in the solar system. Circled by its signature rings of dust, ice, and rock, Saturn also has 83 moons orbiting it. 63 of them known and 20 of these awaiting official confirmation. And with an atmosphere mostly made up of hydrogen and helium, this planet is considered a gas giant. And this would be important to keep in mind if you plan to take a leisurely stroll along its surface, because you could just end up falling right through it. As you approached Saturn, you'd be the first human to take in the glory of its rings and its swirling atmosphere in person. Along the way, you'd pass a few of Saturn's moons, like its outermost moon, Iapetus, the icy Enceladus, and its biggest moon, Titan. You'd make a note to check that one out on your way back home. But for now, you have a date with Saturn. Soon, you'd be making your way through its massive ring system. This would mean you're getting close. Saturn's rings don't even stretch as wide as the distance between Earth and our own moon. You'd fly past each ring in an order that would scramble your understanding of the alphabet. You'd go from the E ring to the G ring and then rings F and A. After that, there's a gap known as the Cassini division. Past it, you'd be on to rings B, C, and D. Yeah, it might sound like whoever named these rings didn't know the alphabet too well, but that's not true. Saturn's rings were just named in the order that they were discovered. You'd pass a lot of stuff inside the rings. Their components range in size from the tiniest grains of ice dust to objects like comets, asteroids, or pieces of former moons that are as large as mountains back on Earth. Finally, you'd make it to the D ring, and you'd be hovering just above the planet itself. Nothing left to do except make your descent. Traveling down to an altitude of about 1,400 kilometers, you'd find yourself surrounded by auras of red and purple. They'd look so different from the ones we have on Earth because of the highly energetic forms of hydrogen in Saturn's atmosphere. Your fall through would suddenly get more exciting, too. You'd begin to get thrown around by powerful gusts of wind. In the upper atmosphere over the planet's equator, winds can reach speeds as high as 500 meters per second. That's almost 5 times stronger than the strongest hurricane force winds on Earth. Yeah, so maybe the equator's not the best place to descend. You'd try coming in for a landing elsewhere, like Saturn's North Pole. Well, this wouldn't be ideal either, because as you descend, a hexagon-shaped storm would be brewing below you, and it would be huge. Spanning about 30,000 kilometers across, you could fit about 2.5 Earths inside of it. Yeah, at least the winds here would be more favorable, but just by a little bit. At the North Pole, wind speeds only reach about 90 meters per second. And I hope you dressed warm enough for Saturn's weather, because the gas giant's troposphere has freezing cold clouds of yellow ammonia. The temperature here is about minus 250 degrees Celsius. Don't think that sounds too bad? Well, good for you, because that's 160 degrees colder than the most frigid temperature ever recorded on Earth. Now, you'd find things starting to warm up a bit as you continued to descend. Next, you'd fall through a layer of light brown ammonium hydrosulfide clouds, followed by normal clouds made of water. Eventually, things would heat up to the more comfortable temperature of 0 degrees Celsius. But that wouldn't mean that the conditions around you would be comfortable. Temperatures would climb higher and higher, and at these lower levels of the atmosphere, the atmospheric pressure would be as intense as it is in the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of our oceans. At some point, you'd be wondering if you'll ever reach Saturn's surface. Well, you'd be disappointed to learn that you kind of already did. It just wasn't solid. Technically, the surface of this gas giant exists where the atmospheric pressure is equal to that of sea level back on Earth. So it was way back up in the freezing cold temperature. There's not much you could look forward to now except continuing to fall straight toward the center of the planet. Of course, the pressure and the temperature would be climbing higher and higher. Soon, you'd find the pressure so high that all the gaseous hydrogen and helium you've been surrounded by would turn into liquid. Yeah, hope you brought a heavy-duty umbrella that can handle helium rain. But that's my bad. I should have warned you about this before you stepped out of the spaceship. Okay, by now, you'd be near the center of Saturn. The planet's molten rocky core could be about 10 times more massive than Earth's, and conditions would be beyond intense. Here, it could be as hot as 11,700 degrees Celsius, with pressure over 1,000 times what you experience on Earth. Yeah, maybe going for a quick stroll on Saturn wasn't such a smart idea. You'd be thrown into an environment so hostile that it would freeze you, then burn you, then crush you under the planet's immense pressure. You wouldn't have a good time. And you didn't even get a chance to walk on Saturn, because as you found out, this gas giant doesn't have a hard surface. What a bummer. You know, the only way you could survive this trip is if you had a special what-if certified spacesuit. You know, the kind that still needs to be invented. Now, if you did somehow manage to escape from Saturn, you could make a quick stopover somewhere a little more manageable, like Saturn's moon, Titan. Approaching this moon, you'd find that it's larger than our own moon and even bigger than Mercury. Titan's not just some boring rock either. Soon, you'd be enveloped by its hazy gold and orange atmosphere of nitrogen and methane. The thick haze around you would look a lot like smog back on Earth. But the worst part is, once you get close to the moon's surface, the atmospheric pressure would make you feel as if you were diving 15 meters deep in the ocean. And at minus 180 degrees Celsius, it would be bone-chillingly cold. But the good news is after all that falling back on Saturn, you'd finally be able to stretch those legs out and work on your step count. Yeah, you'd go for a walk along Titan's rock-hard water ice. Strolling along Titan's surface, you'd encounter all kinds of interesting features. The surface itself would be dark and covered in what would first seem like coffee grounds. These hydrocarbon grains would generate massive dunes, almost like the sand dunes back on Earth. And there would be other things that would blow your mind too. You'd discover rivers and lakes, only Instead of water, they'd be full of liquid methane and ethane. There would also be volcanoes spewing liquid water instead of lava. Is it just me, or is everything on this moon just slightly off? Now, who knows, this may not sound all that bad to you. Maybe you'd even entertain the idea of settling down on Titan for good. Well, that's a story for another What If.